I went, oh God, I don't think I want to do this.
Oh my God.
And that is the best thing.
Welcome to episode 20 of Rockstar CMO FM. The M is for marketing, the F is well, you decide, as we try and figure out if the world needs another effing marketing podcast. I'm your host, Ian Truscott, Chief Bottle Washer at AproPingo, a London-based content marketing agency and founding editor of Rockstar CMO, your monthly dose of marketing street knowledge. You can find us at rockstarcmo.com or at Rockstar CMO on Twitter and LinkedIn. This episode was recorded on Friday the 24th of July. I'm very glad you're here. I hope you had a good week and you're staying safe, well, and as sane as you feel you need to be. I don't know about you, but there is a new routine when we leave the penthouse. Keys, wallet, phone, glasses, and a mask. I'm sticking to the usual set list. I'll dip into the virtual page of Rockstar CMO and suggest something that rocks from our wonderful contributing community. I have a joy of a guest this week for the interview segment, a business and success coach, Caroline Kay, who has a wonderful story. In fact, she has more than one wonderful story that I think you'll enjoy. Plus, she gives us a peek across the sales and marketing divide. And finally, I'll ease into the weekend in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar with content marketing guru Robert Rose, chief troublemaker at the Content Advisory, for a cocktail and a thought for the week. Let's get started, shall we? If you are unfamiliar with Rockstar CMO, we are a monthly publication. Each issue is based around a theme, and we ask our house band of CMOs and marketing writers for their take on that topic, with some regular interviews and features sprinkled in. We then name it after a classic album, which is sometimes debatable as I pick it. This week's dip into the virtual pages of Rockstar CMO has us looking at the most recent issue that we published just this week. It's called Welcome to the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill Issue. And I think for a change, I've picked a classic there. And the theme is, do good marketers need a formal marketing education? What do you think? This debate rumbles on, and on my Twitter feed is normally ignited by the good marketing professor Mark Ritson and his chums. I love his profanity-laden observations about marketing, but maybe, being a professor hawking an MBA, he might have a slight bias on this topic. And in this issue, we don't have a bias. We have a diverse set of opinions on this topic. I encourage you to take a look, but as there's no one here to stop me, I'm going to have a bit of a rant on this one. For a start, how do you define a marketer? In professions like accountancy, medicine, and law, the skills needed, the tools used are well defined and unchanged over decades or maybe even hundreds of years. At its roots, sure, the outcome of marketing is unchanged. What we're trying to do is the same. For example, a 1,000-year-old ad was discovered in China for Jinan Lu's fine needle shop, saying, "We buy high-quality steel rods and make fine-quality needles to be ready for use at home in no time." That copy is recognizable today. It talks about the quality of the product. It talks about the business need or the client need they have to be ready in no time. But writing copy is only part of what the marketing team need to do. And it's many disciplines from data science, finance, vendor management, and of course creative, plus all the plethora of tools and techniques that we have today, I think means it's very hard for one person to be a complete expert. You need a team. Hosting this show and running Rockstar CMO, I have spoken to some wonderful marketers, and their journeys are often fascinating, and almost all did not start in a lecture theatre being taught from a copy of the one-to-one future that Don Peppers and Martha Rogers penned in the early 90s. If you listen to this show, you had heard some of those stories. Okay, so I have no idea what they teach in marketing school. I started work at 17 and came late into the marketing game. I'm not even sure why I picked that book as an example. I actually have a copy of Don Peppers and Martha Rogers, The One-to-One Future, on the shelf behind my desk that formed part of my informal self-taught marketing education, and was thrilled a few months ago when Don Peppers connected me on LinkedIn. It's really good. It was written in the 90s, and there's a lot of it that's still relevant, and I was referring to that, which I think is why we connected. Anyway, I've digressed. My argument is, if you have an aptitude, a willingness to learn the skills, have experience, empathy for the market, good mentors, the ability to think strategically and not just do the work, you can be a really good marketer. Or it might be that you can be part of a really good marketing team if you're into data science or whatever part of marketing you love. Two of my guests told me about taking personality tests that suggested that marketing was the role for them, but they took a winding road to their marketing leadership positions. And some have found that skills they learned in other disciplines, I'm specifically thinking of Jenny Young, CMO of Tappet here, she started her career as a financial auditor. You would argue that being good at finance is an essential skill for a CMO today to understand how the business works from a financial perspective. There is an ex-English football player called Ian Wright. He had a rough upbringing, played football at Sunday League level while he did regular jobs, and then in his 20s got his first break as a professional footballer, way later than most. Then approaching 30, signed for Arsenal, the second biggest club in London. I have a slight bias there. And he became a footballing legend. This was in the 90s. Yet even today, with the improvements in diet, physical conditioning, producing fitter players, they would still consider 30 to be edging past their prime. He had a gift early in his life, but he didn't have the opportunity to apply his craft at the top level until much later than most. And in my opinion, good marketers can be made the same way. However, just don't take my word for it. Like I say, there is a nice spread of opinions from our house band of CMOs and marketing writers in this issue, arguing for and against, some with marketing degrees and some not. I really like this issue. Hope you enjoy reading it, and you can find it on the homepage of rockstarcmo.com under latest issue. Right, on to the interview. Caroline Kay is a business and success coach that works with creative and service-led business owners to grow fast so that they can make a bigger impact on the world. Caroline has devised business development strategies for the world's biggest brands and creative agencies. She now lives in Italy and runs her coaching business from London, York, and Rome, which is from where I spoke to her. Hello, Caroline. Welcome to Rockstar CMO FM. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, hi, Ian. Well, thanks very much for having me today. What can I tell you about me? I love that question. It's so open, could go in so many directions. Well, I'll start with that right now I am a business and success coach. I'm based out in Rome, and I'm really serving the creative community, helping business owners to grow their companies quickly, get in their desired clients, and really make the competition irrelevant.
Oh, I love that. Make the competition irrelevant. That's what we're there for. And you come from a background of business development for a lot of London agencies, I noticed. What's been your journey to becoming a business coach?
Oh, it's been a very fun journey. It started straight after university, really, when I decided to go off to London, and I studied sculpture, art and design.
Wow.
And I'll go back that far, because when I graduated, really excited to work in the world of film. That was the dream. Basically, CGI had been invented, and so my job was non-existent anymore. They were like, we love that you can do big scale sculptures,
oh no,
but we need you to do tiny little ones. And I said, oh, okay. That's a different skill. So I did my master's in art and design. I basically learned how to do editing, Final Cut, learning how to do motion, learning how to do lots of complicated things, sitting in a dark room with lots of boys wearing Star Wars T-shirts. And really, they did. And I was really not happy, because I'm a social bunny. I like to be out. I like talking to people. That's more important to me. And so I had sort of been running a bit of a sideline. I wouldn't even go as far as a business. That sounds too royal for it. But basically to get money in while I was studying, helping out a bar, a Revolution bar. Everyone knows them. There's like 70 bars across the country, the vodka bars. Right. And I was helping out with basically back bar displays, promotional material, making them big 3D mock-ups of words and big mobiles that hung in the middle of the room. Very fun. And they offered me a contract. So I won a couple of awards for them for these displays. And they said, oh, we'll give you the contract for all the bars across the country. What do you think? And I said, I think it's just me working in my mum and dad's garage, knocking these things up. It's really a sideline project while at uni. And they said, well, if you want to set it up, get the factory in place, get people doing it for us. We love your design. So figure out how to do it. Job's yours. And I went, right, okay. I have no idea how to do that. I don't even know if I want to do that. And so basically, I thought about it, what it would all entail, what it would mean. And it wasn't a business I wanted to move forward with. What I loved was going into the bars, sitting down with people and saying, so what is it you need to sell? What is it that you want to promote, market? Who are you talking to? Apart from a load of drunken retrobates, really, how are we going to get across what you need to do?
And easy about those.
So easy in that. But, there was a lot of work done behind the scenes by their brand and marketing teams and what they were doing. And so I was just bringing that to life in a different way. And the bit I loved was the discussion. As soon as I had to go off and actually do the artwork and the creation and the building of it, I was bored. I didn't want to do that. I was like, no, I'm not interested in that. So that's what I want to continue. So I went to London and basically arrived going, give it a few weeks. I had a month's rent. And I thought, well, I'll get a job. I'll figure it out. And if I don't, well, then I'll leave London. But it'll work. So just all in, full gamble. And
Nice.
I went for a sales job. It was at Central Media, so a big publishing house. They did Creative Review, they did Design Week, all the nice publications. And I just thought, well, I love those publications. I read them. They're good. So it seems a good place to start. And I went in and, people as old as me will know the In-Store show, which was many years ago for the sort of guys in the retail and brand space. And that's now become another name altogether. So I think it's the Retail Design Show now. I think it's all changed. But when I was there...
The virtual retail and design show now.
So I was selling space there and, pounding the phones, the classic cutting your teeth, learning how to do it all. And one of my clients, or prospective clients, should we say, that I was hounding at the time. No, actually, my boss was hounding them. That was right. And she was having no joy. And I said, I think I could make a bit more headway. And she was very protective. These are my accounts. I was like, all right, fine, fair enough. And we were at a show and I basically saw this. It was an NEC show, the one up in Birmingham, which is on every year. Again, big trade event. And it was a really scorching hot day, unusual, especially for Birmingham. But it was red hot. And we're out in the beer garden in Wetherspoons. And we were searching for somewhere to sit. Classy, all the way. And I saw this massive group of blokes basically in suits sat at this table and there was a couple of spare seats and I said, well, why don't we go sit over there? And she went, oh no, that's the directors that we're prospecting to. And I went, oh, that's perfect then. So I went over and I went, all right lads, room for a small one. And I just basically told them to move up, sat down and basically had a chat. And you can tell that I've got some northern roots coming through here and just really bold as brass and just going for it. And I sat down and I chatted away to them. I was getting quite merry on my glass of wine in the sunshine. And but two of the guys there were quite senior directors of agencies in London. And afterwards, I saw classic advertisement and design week. So I gave them a call and said, I've seen your advert. Just thought I'd give you a ring, say it looks great. Have you thought any more about the show? Classic stuff. And they said, Caroline, I put that in there just for you, just so you would call me. It was all the banter and the patter. And I was like, let's meet up for a drink. Went for a drink. And I was all excited thinking, yes, I'm going to make a sale. And they said, oh, Caroline, put that away. I've come here to offer you a job. And I went, okay.
Wow.
And so conversation started and then I moved and went into work for a very small company that had just set up. So they were a startup pretty much. I think there was 3 people in the office. And they were doing all the latest innovations, all the latest VR, all the latest hologram displays, really, really cool stuff, interactive floors, the whole malarkey. And I said, that's really cool. Funnily enough, when I finished studying sculpture and I went back to do the film design, I basically got big sculptures I made and I projected on them and I made them spin and I made basically big installation displays because I was fascinated about how it all worked and the future of where it was all going. And I was like, this is just the universe telling me I need to just do this, got to figure it all out. So I went and worked with a bunch of techies, mainly blokes in the office. And basically they just wanted me to go do creative pictures. And that's what I did. And I absolutely loved it. Coming up with ideas, editing together like concept trailers and things that could happen. And I went in and pitched for a big job at L'Oreal. That was my first big pitch. And I remember saying to my boss, I've never pitched before. And he went, you'll be fine. Don't worry, just go in and have a chat. And he thought I was meeting one person at L'Oreal and we were just going to have a conversation about this big campaign.
Oh, gosh.
I walked in. There was only me with my little laptop, and there were 12 people, including the chief global marketing director. There was, heads of brand, all the divisions, waiting to see this presentation of the latest innovation of how to launch. It was a perfume into market at the time. And I went, okay, shaking like a leaf, trying to hide, this, and did my presentation. And I won the account, and then I project managed that through. And that was really the start of sort of my love for business development, I think, because I was like,
and specifically in agencies, or is that's your history?
Yeah, definitely specifically in agencies. A lot of agencies came to us. That was a sort of first direct client that we'd had. And agencies were coming to us to basically bolster their big proposals or their pitches with the latest tech and how it would work, and take their concept and pull it into this different mechanics and ways of working. And I loved all of it. I love walking around the agency floors. I loved, hearing about these campaigns, the massive budgets, the kind of, whether it's a nationwide campaign or a global campaign. And it was all for the big ticket stuff, film premieres and Olympics and all that good stuff that just sort of makes you go, that was a good day.
That's really interesting, because I think it demonstrates that we're all different in sales and marketing, right? Some people enjoy the creative side and some people enjoy the hustle, and clearly you're in that camp. So how did you then make a transition from being this business development person to becoming a coach, a business coach? Is that a natural progression? How did that happen?
I don't know if it's a natural progression. It was for me. I couldn't speak on behalf of any other coaches out there, but I had really, I think it was a case of when I climbed the ladder, as it were, and there was no straightforward ladder, because if anyone looks at my LinkedIn, feel free to do, you'll see I jumped around pretty much on a yearly basis for reasons external to me. They were usually outside of my control, or sometimes there was a man involved, that I sort of got my head turned and decided to go off and live somewhere else or do something crazy. That has continued.
That's a whole nother
episode, and that has continued. But I do think that what was really interesting was when I sort of got right the way to the top of business development, and I was working for a big agency, and it just stopped being fun. I loved, like you said, the hustle, the developing partnerships, seeing opportunities, building out relationships. I loved it. But when it kind of got to a point where you kind of were working all the nights, all the hours, you're doing long pitches, and suddenly you've done all that hard work, and then it was like, right, on to the next one. And I just felt, how long can you keep it up? How long can you just, the classic, it's a young man's game, always comes in, or should I say young person to be PC.
Yeah.
But, ultimately it was just, I just felt that this isn't, I can do it. When you get to a point where you just feel, I can do this.
Yeah.
There's no more challenge. There's no more growth. Yeah. It's just me continually redoing it. And I wanted to be inspired. I wanted to do different things. And then the classic, I decided to figure out a bit more about who I am and what I wanted to do with my life. And I had gone to see a coach. I was in Shoreditch House, and there was this, there was a talk on, great, go have a look at that. And it was great. It was a brilliant session where they basically just said, just have a think about what you want outside of work. And I don't think I'd done that. I hadn't given myself permission to think about what do I want when I'm not at work, trying to hit all the targets, meet all the objectives. And one of the things she told me to do is, she said, write a bucket list. And I said, I'm not dying. I'm just trying to think about what my next move is. And she said, no, write a bucket list and think about what you want to do, but don't make it work related, just stuff you want to do. And I went, okay, all right, that sounds a good idea. So I wrote it down. I had lots of stuff on there that, ultimately it has external factors to figure it out. But she said, right, choose something off that list that you want to do and do it now. And one of them was learn a language. And I really wanted to learn Italian for no other reason that it sounds beautiful and love the food, love the country. Why wouldn't I? Because I said, if it was for work, I should learn Spanish because there's a lot of opportunities there. And she said, no. Do it because you love it. And I went, all right, fine. Yeah. So that was Tuesday. Thursday, I booked a flight, booked on a course, and just packed a bag and went off for 3 weeks to go learn Italian because, it'll be that easy. 3 weeks, I'll do it. And I went on this course, and it was not easy, and not easy to learn in 3 weeks. So I extended the trip to 3 months because I thought, well, why not? I'm taking some time. And I travelled all of Italy, north to south, went off to Sicily, just prolonged the summer as long as I could. Did stories that I never want my mum and dad to hear. And I had a lot of fun. And then I basically...
That's another episode.
A whole nother episode. And then last stop was Rome, and I was having a ball, and it was the sort of first night. I got quite comfortable being a solo traveler. And that's when I met my now partner, Nico, in a bar. And then I just went, that's interesting. And then sort of the 2 weeks into the sort of trip, I said, right, I'm going to go back to England. He goes, well, you better book your flight to come back then. I said, well, I'm going to think about how that would work. And anyway, I kind of went off back to England, but I did book a flight back because one of my big ambitions at the time was to start my own company. In this 3 months of soul searching and having a lot of fun, I basically decided, yeah, I think I just need to do it for myself. I want to put all these practices of growing businesses and putting it all together for me. And I just need to figure out, what am I going to do? Because what I'm good at is selling other people's stuff. You know, you tell me what you're great at, I'll package that up and I'll go out there and find unique clients. But how am I going to do it for me? So, of course, I had some mad ideas. But one of the ideas, because one of my biggest passions was tennis. So I sort of left out that everywhere I went, across Italy, I basically found the tennis courts and went and played. And I got to play with some pros, I got to play with some top coaches, and I still had a ball, and sort of confidence increased. And when I arrived in Rome, I just searched for local to me places to play. Wrote a very badly worded Italian email to say, could I come along? Nobody answered. Fine, pick up the phone, literally with my script in front of me and how to pronounce and say all the things I wanted to say. Can I come and play? And they said, you're English. And I said, yes. And I said, you come, we see. Excellent. Okay. So I then found my way to the courts. The courts happen to be the Olympic Stadium and where all the championship matches are played. And basically you can't get in unless you're a member that's been recommended, you know, all that stuff. So I got in, found the coach whose English was as good as my Italian. So it was, you know, basically lots of hitting the ball, not much chat. And but we had it, and then he took me down to centre court, and he's walking me along this corridor, and there's all the pictures of all the greats. And he said, "Yep, coached him. Yeah, that was the winner last year." And he's looking at Nadal, and he's pointing at, you know, there's Steffi Graf, who we used to teach. I'm like, no, wow, goosebumps all over me, and just went, this is it. This is what I should sell. I should sell tennis holidays, because who wouldn't want to come here? It's like basically going to Wimbledon, but coming to Rome, something that people wouldn't normally have. Gap in the market, all of that. I was all very excited. And so I basically said, yeah, okay, I'll come back because I'm going to try and launch this business. So I booked an Airbnb for a month and went, that's it. That's my window. Figure it out in a month. If I can get it up and running, there we go. So I moved to Rome for 1 month to try and get this business off the ground. Start coming up with mad ideas like membership club and like getting deals and offers at the top rooftop hotels and like where I could take people who come. So I was developing packages and thinking of offers and building social media and basically lots of pictures of me drinking cocktails. And but I had a lot of fun. Even brokered a deal with the directors of the club and basically, again, in bad English and Italian, let's get this happening. They said, you bring people, we'll sort this out for you. Then I got a call from a friend who said, I know people who love tennis. Let me sort you out. Da-da-da. Next thing I know, I've got 20 people potentially coming over for a big trip, and it's really going to happen. And at that moment, I went, oh, God, I don't think I want to do this.
Oh, my God.
And that is the best thing about basically trying out an idea instead of dreaming about it, thinking about it. This is something I recommend to everyone I work with. Don't think that's a good idea. Could it work? It's like, figure it out, try it out, fail fast. And I basically, all those learning curves that I did, I learned how to build a website. I improved my marketing for social media. I learned to reconnect with all my network. I mean, all the skills that I used to do that helped me then launch the business I really wanted to do. So none of this was wasted. It wasn't time wasted. It was just focused on the wrong thing, but it was all good learnings. And again, that's another thing for doing a quick test, figure it out, find out how. And I had a lot of time to do all of this stuff. So instead of sitting there waiting for the perfect idea, give it a try, you know, and that really worked for me. And it was when
I like that. I like. I also like what a lot of people do. They put a lot of sunk cost, don't they, and emotion in something. And when they realize it's not the right thing, it's very hard for them to change.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I think I also got doubled up with a bit of an injury at the time from playing too much tennis. And I thought, and that was another thing. I thought, I don't want to sit on the sidelines with other people play. I want to be on the court. That was my passion. No interest in selling like tennis holidays. That wasn't going to be the thing for me. I didn't know anything about it, never done it before, but all of that, I thought I could figure it out. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
But no, actually, when it came down to it, and I'd done all the bit I was good at, then I was into the unknown, and then I was into a whole, oh God, is this even what I want to learn? Do I really want to go back to the beginning, and do all of this? Yeah. And that wasn't. And that's another thing when you're building a business. So all these mistakes really helped me figure out it's about, rooting whatever you do in what you're good at. And spinning off that. And spin-offs are brilliant. They're absolutely great. But it's still got to be in your absolute zone of genius, like what you're fantastic at. And it was more organically how my actual business grew, which was through, while I was coming up with all these wonderful ideas and going off and having cocktails and rooftops, I was also going a little bit stir crazy in this Airbnb, typing away on my laptop. And every time the boyfriend came in to take me out, I was like, oh, a human. Oh my goodness. Someone to talk to. And he went, okay, wow, we really need to get you out. So one of the things he did, he says, you should get a job. And I said, no, my business is going to work. I've got total faith. And he said, no. Really, just to have, social connection, get out there, you need it. So he told me to get a job as an English teacher. And I said, oh, really? English teacher? Me? I'm not feeling it. I'm not the best writer. I don't think my grammar's all that. I don't think that's, me. And he said, just do it. You'll be fine. You'll be a natural. So funnily enough, I looked up online and they were like a school offering full training and then you go into the work. And I'm like, okay. So I applied thinking, I'll never get it. I've not even got any experience. Now, all you had to be able to do was speak English, be from England, and you've got the job pretty much. So I got this job, but turned out they had the contract for the Vatican. And so they got to go in and teach the cardinals, teach all the restorers and the photographers and all the people that work with inside the Vatican. And I was like, that's really cool. So I got in there and then I really did start meeting people, really kind of powerful people in Rome, people that did a lot of great stuff. And, you're just a bit of a magnet when you talk about things you love. So I talk about me and what I liked and my history and my love for art and creativity. And so these guys are like, oh, well, could you help me? I'm trying to write a press release to get myself in a UK publication. Yeah, I can help you with that. So I'd sit down and help someone. Then he'd be like, oh, I've got a friend, she's the head of the arts in Venice. And could you help her try and launch a product into market? Definitely, yeah, I could help do that. And so I started helping people with various things, just really to get to know more people and things that I could do easily. And they had great success stories. And then building from that, a friend of a friend, oh, you need some help with a presentation. You should talk to Caroline. She said she did something like that back in London, pitching and stuff. Yeah, you should talk to her. So then people come around to my house and then this is Antonella who, I just love her to bits because she was my light bulb moment. She came over and she said, I've got this big pitch. I'm up against 20 people. I'm going to have to fly to the head office in London. It's the biggest law firm in the world. And everybody there is a different type of lawyer. I'm real estate, there are other things. So it's not an even playing field. I've got this allocation of time. I think I'm just scared I'll say the wrong things. Just help me with my English. That was obviously how it started. She started talking and I went, right. I think we need to start again. So we completely built the presentation from scratch and we worked together to really unpack what was her character, her stories, all her humor, but all her intelligence. And we brought this story to life and we spent 2 months doing it together. I mean, it was every Saturday morning. She was here at my house, 8 a.m. We were going through it. And we unpacked that. We did it. She called me in March. As soon as she came out the presentations, then I got the job. That was
Splendid.
it. And I was like, fantastic. That's it. This is what I've put on this earth to do. I'm here to help people realize what their strengths are, showcase them in the best way, and make it, it's not a question of price or, even trying to compare you with someone else. It's nothing to do with comparison. It is you are uniquely you. You have abilities and talents that other people do not have, and get out there and shout about it. So it's that lovely balance of marketing and then obviously the business development bit, which is get out there and do it and show it. But it's been a journey, but that kicked it all off. So I started my private practice in July. And within 6 months, I'd sort of hit profitability. And within a year, I had a waiting list and all the strategies were working. I love what I do. I'm working with some great people, from film directors to CEOs of art charities to just an absolute mix. But the sort of consistent denominator throughout everything has been people in a sort of creative field. And when you think creative, you kind of think design, brand, or whatever. But actually, it's bigger than that. It's where you have to go in and you have to develop a proposal. You're in a service-led business where you're literally finding those solutions to big problems, and you're coming up with a creative response. That is really what it is. And I love it. I just keep doing it. So,
well, I mean, it's inspiring just listening, just to you describing the journey. I can imagine that the coaching is probably, probably fills people with that confidence. And it sounds fantastic. And we're on question 2, I think.
Told you to shut me up. I'm a talker.
So, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was about the relationship between sales and marketing. I know that you've sort of, now I've heard the whole story unpacked. I mean, it's fascinating, and clearly you dip into both. But when in your roles, because I wanted your view from a sales perspective of what I can share with this marketing audience of that relationship. So, what's your view on that?
Yeah, it's really interesting when I think it comes down to marketing and sales. If I had to break it down and make it really easy, it's marketing is the push and business development is the pull.
Right.
That is the distinction. So marketing has got to be about connecting with that audience, coming up to them and saying, I've got something really relevant for you. I've got something inspiring. Here's what great looks like. And, this is what something you could do. So it's kind of getting people who are sitting on the fence, not sure what their next move is, to go over here. This is something that's just waiting for you. And then when you've got them to the start line, okay, they're interested, they're on board, you've got that lead, that's when you need the pull. That's got to be, okay, now it's decision time. Now you've got to get out your wallet. Now you've got to spend some money. It's a case of you've got to be really hard based on evidence, relevancy, who you are in the market, why you should trust them, that building of trust. I mean, marketing's done a brilliant job to get you to the point where you're ready to have the conversation, but then you've really got to get them over the line. And that's, again, getting into negotiation. It's getting into really being someone that listens. I think this is the most I've spoken in ages, and I'm really taking advantage of it, because really it is about, you've got to sit and listen. You've got to hear about what their problems are. And then you've got to find your solutions. And it's got to be a little bit bespoke. It's got to be tailored to what they're asking. It's not telling them the whole story. It's saying, here's what's really relevant. This is what we could do for you. So even if it's not tailored, it feels tailored, and they just think, what am I waiting for? Let's do this. Let's make it happen, And so there's just this big difference. And I hate it when people think marketing and business development are the same. They're just different skills. And I have, although marketing's been always part of what I do in terms of leading marketing teams, or, working with the marketing team on the strategy, or the marketing director on that, it comes down to, I need to get this result. So what's going to help give them the push to get, so I can have a conversation with them. So they've got to work together. There's got to be a harmony there. And I think if one is working without the other, you're going to end up in disaster, and it's not going to come together in the end. But I think it's that ability to not just communicate, persuade, or do targeting, but it's that creating the rationale that marketing do so brilliantly, that you kind of, why would you say no? And, why wouldn't you do this? This is what you've been looking for. It's kind of just do it fantastically. And I think the best marketeers I know, you will have a massive group of leads. You'll have, your warm list, your cold list, and they will be progressively filling that funnel. And then I think when you get over to the business development, it is closing the deals, negotiating the deals. It is, marketing will have organised the event and got everyone there. The business development are in the room, work in the room, making sure everyone knows them. They know their problems. We've got follow-ups planned. They work together. I don't think they should be separated, but they're not the same thing. And if you try and do it all, you'll just have a mediocre version, rather than somebody coming with all the energy and the kind of excitement to do what they're great at.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned in that was about the fact that we've all got to be aligned with the same goal, really.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think sometimes I can only speak from the side of marketing, because I think sales is pretty cut and dried, right? There's one goal, revenue, isn't it? But for sometimes for marketers, we can get distracted by web hits or other vanity metrics and stuff. But really, we've got to be all, guided by that one principle, haven't we, of signing another customer.
I don't know. I think I might challenge that, Ian, actually.
Good.
I mean, I just, it's interesting what you say. There's that one goal of revenue. I think that's not always the case, I've found. There's certainly, there are ambitious targets, always in any walk of life. And when you're with marketing, of course, you want to hit those metrics, know that the work you're doing is effective. But I think actually that's the word. It's about being effective. So marketing, you can track it with your numbers. Sales, you can track it with how many conversions. But I don't think that's the focus. The focus has got to be, you're serving your audience. And I think anyone that's authentic and has good conscience and does well in sales is that they have figured out that they've got something to give that their audience really needs. And if you're in the business for the money, if that's where your goal is and that's where you started, you'll probably get out of business very quickly because you're not going to be serving them in the way that a client wants. You're not going to be generating value in a way that's exponential. You're not going to be building a brand that everybody raves about and says, they go the extra mile, they do so much more for you, or I've had this pain and other people have said they can fix it, and they could, but they didn't do it like this company. So I think it's having that passion. It's really knowing that, what you do is going to build your legacy. It's going to be something that, at the end of the day, I can't remember what program it was. I saw something the other day and they said, nobody wants on their tombstone, this is how much money I made.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. Everyone wants to know the impact they've created, the lives they've changed. And I think with sales, if you can believe in your product, if you know that you're making a real difference, you become the best salesperson in the world. But if all you think about is, I've got to hit those numbers. Yeah. I mean, almost people can hear it on the phone, in your email. It's just like, oh, you're desperate, mate.
I love
Bugger off.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this. And I was right to be challenged. I mean, as a content marketer, I definitely lean more towards being useful to the customer, even in marketing, right? So I think that's really good. Now, I could talk to you for the rest of today and probably most of tomorrow, but I do have a final question for you. I know that we haven't got through many of them, but we have the concept of the Rockstar CMO swimming pool here at Rockstar CMO. This is where we chuck all the bullshit and snake oil and any of the old tat that seems to be formed up around our wonderful industry of marketing. What would you throw in there?
Any marketeer that wants to be your friend.
I love that we don't rehearse this because I hear these sometimes and I just can't help myself. I think before we were chatting, we were talking about Keith Smith saying he wanted to chuck Alec Baldwin into the swim pool, and I burst out laughing. And that's fantastic. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, it's that classic of, really being able to be so efficient with technology and data and, seeing what you've looked at and saying to you, oh, you've looked at this, maybe you'll like this. But also the kind of the way the social media builds or the marketing builds. And I'm going to tell you my life story. I didn't ask for your life story. I don't want to know. Or they're kind of saying, oh, it's Monday. I had a coffee and a croissant. How about you? Oh, please, God, no. I mean, I'm talking about all of the bad marketing here, but it is like they're trying to connect with you on a friend level. And we don't want companies or brands to be our friend. We want them to inspire us. We want us to show us the fast way to get out of Dodge, or you got a problem, this is the way we can fix it. And I just can't stand it when somebody thinks that they know me because of my past data search or the fact that I bought this once. It's like, I bought that for my 90-year-old grandma. I'm definitely not interested in that, whatever it might be. But I think I heard on one of your other swimming pool sort of throw-ins about automation. And I think this is sort of a spin-off from that, really, where they're kind of feeling the data's leading, or they're trying to build up a friendship without really knowing you and just putting you in a group. And again, I think my comment before going back to it is where marketing, it's not about connecting with you as, an individual. It's about, inspiring people. It's about bringing content that resonates. It's, making sure you're creating those rationales that really make people think, I'd be mad not to. and then getting into the sales guys. And when you're building relationships, again, don't want you to be a friend. They want you to come with the solutions to the problem. And that's where
be useful.
Be useful. Yeah, exactly. Add value, extra value.
Yeah.
See what you,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, see what you can give before what you can get. And I think you'll go a long way.
All right. Well, that was just splendid, and I found it very inspiring, and I'll be listening to it again myself. So I hope the listeners enjoyed it. If people want to hear more from you or read more about your work, where can they find you?
Yeah, if they go ahead to carolinekay.co, this is the home of my coaching and consulting website. And I'd really advise, subscribing to my newsletter, because I promise not to fill you inbox with friendly commentary. It'll actually be invites to workshops or events or things that really inspire me, like great podcast shows. This one will absolutely feature, and eventually my own podcast as well, which is in the mix and being made at present. So
I look forward to hearing that. That's how we got connected, you doing that. So I'm looking forward to listening to your podcast. And are you on Twitter and LinkedIn?
I'm on all of the channels, but to be honest, I'm not one of the Twitterati. Better to find me on LinkedIn. I'm there much more frequently.
All right. Well, I'll include links to all of that in the show notes. And thank you very much, Karen. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me in.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Caroline. And of course, I'll include all the links to Caroline, her work, and contact details in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast. It's Friday night. We are rapidly moving toward our tradition of family pizza and movie night in our house, but I'll first nip into the Rockstar CMO virtual bar and see if I can grab a cocktail with Robert Rose, Chief Troublemaker at the Content Advisory. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, hello, my friend. Good to hear your voice. Well, and welcome to the bar. Here's the thing. This week, even though we've been locked up at home, I'm thinking about home. And so we created a thing that we called the Home Hatton, which is, since we can't be in Manhattan, we're creating the Home Hatton.
Nice.
And it's just a classic Manhattan. But what we do is we add a little extra cherry hearing, which is sort of the cherry juice that goes into a Manhattan. And here's the special part, a little dash of absinthe, because you're home. And so you can deal with the absinthe in this case. So it's a classic absinthe with a little extra cherry and a dash, which makes a beautiful color, by the way, of absinthe.
Nice. Yes. That absinthe has got quite the reputation, hasn't it?
It does indeed, and I can say this. The dash that you add to this drink will not do what the legend sort of promised. But you can make drinks with absinthe that take you to that place for sure.
And I'm always impressed with the size of your bar, because I know from following you on Facebook, you genuinely make all these drinks, and I think you must have a special room full of all these lovely liquors. But I'll give it a go from what I've got here on my desk. You'll be unsurprised to discover that I have some Hendrick's gin here.
I think that is something like it's bourbon, yeah.
But if I put enough in, then maybe we can forget about that, right?
Yeah.
Did you say ice?
There is no ice in this drink, actually. No, you can do it like with a one large rock if you wanted to, but typically this is more of a shaken, not stirred kind of drink.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't shaken it.
Yeah.
I haven't stirred it either. And what else do I put in there?
Well, if you've got some cherry hearing, which is sort of cherry juice, if you will,
right?
And
let me just have a look. Let me just have a look around. I've got tonic. Here we go.
Tonic and absinthe, not really the same thing, but yeah, okay, that sounds good.
But at least I won't be blind. Right, so it has its upside, and there are some botanicals probably in the wormwood of whatever they make absinthe out of. Let me try this.
Yeah.
That's, again, you've knocked it out of the park, Robert. Another really nice drink, and yet another drink that I could drink week in, week out.
Absolutely fantastic.
And what was it called?
This was our Home Hatton.
Home Hatton. I love it. I love the name. And one day I might move beyond gin and experience one of these drinks. And then, well, does the name give away where we're going to be drinking this?
Well, it doesn't actually. Because, one of the things that we've been trying to do to beat the heat of summer is...
Lucky you. I'm in the UK.
Yeah. So, it may be to get out of the rain, is to head to a place in California that's not terribly far from where I live. It's called Lake Tahoe. And it's an absolutely spectacular place up in the mountains. So it's cooler, much cooler, right on the lake. And if you stay on the California side, you avoid all of the nonsense of casinos and gambling.
Oh, okay.
And so you get the lovely mountain, cool atmosphere on a beautiful lake.
Nice.
And you're away from it. And it's a great place to have a drink like this.
Sounds lovely. So is that on the border with Nevada then? Is that what?
That's right. That's exactly.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I've been to Nevada, obviously been to Vegas, but I've never been to Lake Tahoe. It sounds lovely. And am I imagining us just looking out over the lake with a couple of these?
You are indeed. We're sitting on the dock and of one of the beautiful lake houses there. Typically, watching the lake disappear sort of with the sun behind us and looking out over the lake as it gets dark. And it's just
nice.
Stars and it's beautiful.
Beautiful. And Robert, you do paint a picture with words, mate. That sounds lovely. So, and as the sun goes down and we while away some time here, what would we be talking about?
Well, a lot of what I've been thinking about these days is, especially with this year, is this idea of the purpose of brand, right? And not thinking about the brand story, right? Sort of the value of the brand and brand architecture, but literally getting into this purpose, this idea of what it is we stand for when it comes to current social issues and current thinking when it comes to where we're, what our point of view is on things like climate change and, and social issues like Black Lives Matter and all of the things that are so front forward today. And, what I'm finding is the more larger companies that we're working with, it's not a question of whether the brand actually has a point of view on this. It's that they've developed so many points of view because, quite frankly, there's so many voices in the business that they can't simply keep up. And, you've got, everything from, web pages that are out there talking about how we, recycle our, cups to, we're running a 5K for this particular initiative to, here's our stance on Black Lives Matter. And getting our arms around that from a communication strategy seems to be an incredibly important thing to do these days.
Is that about a broader CSR strategy within these organizations?
I think it is in many ways. I think what I'm finding anyway is that there are companies that are certainly putting a lot of money and a lot of effort into developing those strategies. But what they're not doing is tying it into their marketing and branding. And they're, so you end up with a lot of content.
Right.
That doesn't really match, so in other words, you launch your whatever you want to call it, your social corporate, responsibility strategy, your sell strategy, whatever it is. And all of a sudden now you have another section on your website, right?
Yeah.
And now you have, you've got one for diversity, you've got one for environment, you've got one for social issues, and you've got these sections on your website. They don't really match up. They don't really tell a cohesive story. They just sort of talk about all the things that we're doing, from transparency to data usage to diversity, and environmental issues and those sorts of things. Yeah. Not in a cohesive way. So we're making exactly the same mistake that we did with our products and brands as we are with initiatives that we're trying to be good in the world with.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about that because, as a CMO, there's good strategies already in place for things like product messaging and messaging.
Well,
and things like
there is anyway.
But you ask why, and you can say no and things like that. But I think when it comes to CSR, some of it is also it comes from the ground up, doesn't it? And so you have this sort of disconnected model of people doing, like you said, like they're doing a 10K in Munich or something in the German office to support breast cancer or something, and then corporate have decided they're going to go in a different direction, and it's incoherent.
Yeah, that's right.
That's your point, right?
Yeah, I mean, what happens is that you have leadership, and the risk of this, by the way, and I've actually seen this happen with larger organizations, is where you have an executive, maybe not the CEO, maybe the CMO or your VP of technology, or someone who is on a call with an analyst or on a call with a reporter, and that reporter or analyst has done their due diligence and gone through the website and seen all the things that are out there, and asks the executive about it, and then the executive goes, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my God.
Because there's just too much, right? There's too much to know about, because anybody, can publish, to the website some fantastic initiative that they feel like that they want to launch, and the executive has no way to message it or no way to tell that story. And what that does is that it makes it sound like the brand is trying to purpose wash what
exactly. It's inauthentic, isn't it? And I've actually had that instance with a CMO once where I asked them about a blog post that they'd supposedly written. This has nothing to do with CSR or what you're talking about. It was just about a topic I was interested in. And I asked them about it, and they had no idea. They had no idea because it had been ghostwritten. It was part of their content machine to chuck things out in this guy's name. And I was very disappointed. I hate ghostwriting anyway. I think that writing is a skill that people should demonstrate. But it's like that, isn't it? It demonstrates you lose trust in somebody if they don't know the answers to those things.
That's right. It's the worst, right? It's worse than giving a bad answer. And the reason is because what you've now said is that the company doesn't know what it's doing. The executive doesn't know what it's doing, and everything you say from this point forward, I have to go double check because you aren't aware of it. It's this. It's the same thing, and this happens a lot, in B2B organizations where the organization doesn't understand what thought leadership is being published on its behalf. And when a customer will call up a salesperson and say, I just love this white paper that I got from you guys. It's the most provocative, wonderful thing that I've ever read. And the sales guy goes, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but great. I'm glad you got value out of it. Well, now you've done two things: is you've ruined the thought leadership piece because the brand clearly doesn't know what it's talking about. And two, ruined that relationship with that customer and that sales guy, because he's not only provided no value, he's provided negative value. There's no reason for that customer to ever talk to that salesperson ever again, because they don't know. Yeah,
I think, the thing I was saying also about managing those kind of communications, because there has to be managed sensitively, people are abdicating that responsibility. I wonder, if somebody is doing these things, it is hard to sort of say anything about them without at risk of causing offense, and then you create this sort of shanty town of CSR, right?
Well, yes, interesting metaphor. Yes, indeed.
Perhaps not a very good one.
Not, but it's certainly evocative. I think you're right. You basically it's perhaps the better metaphor would be sort of the movie set, right, where that's the facade, of the saloon and the hotel, but behind it is nothing, right? It's just it's just literally a shell of a door, and you walk through the door and you're on the other side of a wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's a really interesting thought, and I think it's there's a deeper message here, isn't there, about coherent content marketing regardless of topic. I think that's what I'm hearing. I think. Yeah.
Well, just get your story straight, right? Get you know what I mean? It's like, figure out the right strategy. It's a story strategy, not only about why your brand is the most valuable thing in the world and what it stands for and all the wonderful things that we go watch Steve Jobs videos for, but also figuring out in today's world what it is the brand stands for from a, topical concern point of view, so that, when you're talking about it, everybody's talking about it consistently.
Really good point. And thank you very much. Is that something that you've talked about on your podcast?
I have not done a lot of talking. The reason it's top of mind is because we've done some work recently with a big brand on this, and came out and developed a bit of a framework that we're starting to use to look at this. But I haven't actually done, I mean, I have it on my to-do list for sure, but I have not actually done any specific writing on that framework or the thinking there.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. And I imagine that people would look forward to you sharing that, because, I saw it in a fairly small organization where I was trying to manage local initiatives around CSR and make that coherent to the brand. So I think that's really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert. And where can we find you for when this insight does drop?
Well, there are innumerable places to find me these days. This on the socials, you can of course find me at Robert_Rose on Twitter and on LinkedIn. Just do a search for me, you'll find me. And the website is of course contentadvisory.net. Splendid.
And will I find you in the bar next week?
You will indeed find me in the bar.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you, Robert. As we referred to in the conversation, you can find Robert at the Content Advisory. I'll include links to his website, his fabulous podcast, The Weekly Wrap, and This Old Marketing with Joe Polizzi in the show notes. But a warning, this week on The Weekly Wrap, he has some giggling English bloke on that swears a little and is the founding editor of Rockstar CMO. Yes, folks, that was me. And I really enjoyed being on the other side of the podcasting mic, chatting to my old friend about search and content marketing, and I encourage you to check it out. Okay, maybe not for my episode. Robert usually has some wonderful guests. All right then, that's it. The end of episode 20 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. And thank you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track and jiving along with us. Thanks again to Robert, to Caroline for being such a wonderful guest, and to our wonderful Rockstar CMO contributing community for sharing their views on the topic this month. By the way, I was introduced to Caroline by Keith Smith. Check out his podcast called The Fuel Podcast, especially if you're interested in the topic of business development. But most of all, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you like my guests, please give them a mention, click their links, take a look at their work. I really appreciate their time. And if you have any feedback for me, you can find our little crew at Rockstar CMO on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Next week, I'm hoping to chat to Phil Lewis, founder and principal at Corporate Punk. Had a really nice chat to him today, really interesting views and insight into why CMOs don't make it to CEO. And we'll record something next week. I think you'll like it. But hey, why don't you subscribe? Make sure you don't miss it. Until then, I've been your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of Rockstar CMO, and I hope you'll join us again next week here at Rockstar CMO FM.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the boys' club of advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.